that was something that was a tropical sunfish. I don't know if you've sometime look at the definition of sunfish in the encyclopedia, but it looks like this.
Like that.
Oh.
And but the one that we had from this fin to that fin was 13 feet.
It was a huge one.
And the way they got it up on the float was they took Lou Hopkins' record, went down and threw a cable around it and brought it up onto the thing. It woke everybody in Kingston up because it got trapped on a dock on the south side of the bay. And it was making so much noise at about 3 o'clock in the morning that everybody in town was trying to figure out what all the noise was.
Yeah, I remember that.
What year was that? What year was that?
It was I think it was 1936, because that was the year that the El Nino caused a lot of warm water to come north, and we were catching Spanish mackerel down on the dock. And people were taking fish out of there in wheelbarrow loads, because these things that you'd take, minute your line hit the water, boom, you had a fish. And it was, but that was caused by El Nino. Now, the only time I've heard of Spanish mackerel being caught was 2 years ago up off the coast of Vancouver Island, but it was an El Nino year. And that was the year also that we were fishing out toward Apple Tree Point, and back behind the boat came up this fin, and the only thing we can figure out was it actually was a swordfish. All we ever saw of it was about that much of this jagged fin that they talk about or you see on marlin. But it had a lot of strange fish came out of the water that year.
I remember that. But the one that bothers me, as I say, the herring, because there was at one time 1, 2, 3, 4 creeks that had salmon runs. And there is none.
No.
Well, there is some come up the head of the sluice.
Is there still?
Yeah, there's
Was that created, Jack, when they strung the wire in there and planted?
no, actually, this is, see, George Bonner, when he put that road across there and caused that dam, he pretty well did away with the thing, with anything going up the creek, until they tore that out when they put in Kingston Hill. And then, of course, when the state put in used the head of the bay there for a fish rearing area, that pretty well did away with it too, because they put a
Gate, didn't they put a gate?
Put a gate. Well, they put a weir on the South Kingston Road, but then the culvert that went under West Kingston Road had a thing that the fish couldn't go up. The water could come out, but the fish couldn't go up.
The sunfish, you mentioned how they went under the dock and they were making noise.
Mm-hmm.
Describe that noise.
Well, I don't know if you really, just a big thumping noise.
All I know is it woke up,
Was about that.
it woke up everybody over on that side. I
Still
know
living
that.
on the farm then.
It was across the bay from our house. Let's see, what place was that?
It was either Hellsess or who was the one that had the yacht that always
Yeah,
put
the
it
head of the American Cracker Company.
Yeah.
I think it was their dock.
Nabisco's, but it was in there, one of those 2 docks that was over there. He got in, and as the tide went out, there wasn't anything for him, so he had to lay over, and when he couldn't get out, and he just flopping.
Boy, it was huge.
Poor fish.
So, anything about the marina in Kingston? Do you think would be better to change, or?
You're not going to change it.
Well, I like it. I think it's a wonderful place to walk your dog. I take my dog for walks down around that marina all the time.
Other than the marina, any other place in Kingston, do you think?
The marina, I think there was $2.5 million put into that marina, parking, and when they tore down the old buildings and things, parking, the boardwalk, the fencing. It was 1994. 95?
I know it took part of our place.
Who were the people that lived in the house that was the original yacht club?
Um,
Well, that's where we lived.
Yeah, but what was his
Oh,
name?
I know.
Well, it belonged to Matheson's.
Yeah, it belonged to Ed Matheson, but then he sold to.
Vernon Barrett's
Well,
niece.
Hall,
Oh,
yeah, Hall,
Yeah.
well then, Hall was gonna make it into a fishing resort. In fact,
Vernon Barrett's niece.
and I'm trying to think, because I helped Joe Brown build all those, there was a bunch of cabins, and they actually built it
Yeah.
well, and they was going to have boats for rent and everything like that, but then that never did quite pan out all the way
well,
through.
he never could get boats out.
Was there anybody by the name of Pearson or Peterson that lived there?
No, not there. Peterson, the only Peterson I knew was Hank that lived on the south side, and he built all the boats for Roy Sandal, all the boat rentals.
Was there somebody lived down there named Carter?
Carter?
You mean Hank Peterson?
Hank Peterson.
Yeah, he lived out there in South
Yeah,
Kingston.
yeah, built boats.
Well, a lot of his
And,
boats
you had-
were built by Nels Matheson over on Thorndike. That was, remember, he built about 8 to 10 12-foot skiffs every year. And you would put your name in on the list, and then about, because they were all hand split and everything, but he wintered over on Thorndike Bay, and then in the spring he'd bring his barge around with his, and,
We're down there by, Ed's place.
yeah.
And if your name happened to get up on the list, you gotta go.
But boy, they were nice, they were sure nice skiffs.
So we had-
Ira Peters lived in the old yacht club. They rented it, Ira Peters. He was Vernon Barrett's niece and her husband. Ira Peters, and they had 2 boys and a girl.
Peters?
Peters, Ira Peters.
And he was the last one before the yacht
I
club
think
took over.
so, I think so.
Yeah, it's too bad you don't have city direct, you weren't big enough for city directors.
And what was the name of that hall where we used to have the Christmas parties? Wasn't that the Modern Woodman Hall?
Modern
And that was
Woodman
where your
Hall.
folks had their house.
Well, yeah,
Or
the
near
mother
there.
bought it for the building and the property for preservation. It became a fire trap. And she was afraid that the whole thing would go up in smoke.
And where was it?
But it sat right behind, went over the Blue Dolphin, or
Yeah.
that sat right in there, right behind,
That's where all the city functions were.
yeah.
The Grange Hall was upstairs.
Yeah.
I went to a meeting up there. Cecil Van Kuren's father, Charlie Van Kuren, used to play the bones.
Yeah.
Whatever they were, he played the bones. I was just fascinated with the way he
But
did
that was the only
that.
place I ever saw a Silent Louis with the guy playing the piano.
Yeah.
Remember those Christmas parties we
Yeah.
had? Ernie Stevenson was Santa Claus. He'd
And
come down the hall there and he'd give the kids a brown paper bag, and we had this old-fashioned hard candy, the ribbon candy and all, and nuts in their shells, and an orange.
And
And
an
this was
orange.
a big treat during the
And it
Depression.
always in one sack and always all
All
stuck
stuck
together.
together, yeah.
But the other thing that, after they tore that down, and before they had the